Join me today in baking a delicious and fluffy brioche loaf, perfect for morning breakfast with jams, spreads, and French toast. I'm Kat, owner of Charmin Chic Baking, and welcome to my channel. In the description below, you'll find the quantities for the ingredients used in this rich bread. This will make 2 loaves, and although you can have the recipe to make only 1 loaf, it won't be easy to make in a stand mixer as the quantity won't be enough for the mixing bowl to work well. This brioche is made with plenty of eggs, butter, and milk, so it's definitely not suitable for vegans or those avoiding dairy. However, these ingredients result in a very light and fluffy bread if you follow the techniques closely. To make the perfect brioche, you'll need to plan ahead as it requires 2 days. One for making the dough, which will be chilled overnight, and the next day for shaping and baking. Brioche stays fresh for a few days at room temperature or can be chilled for up to a week. It also freezes well, making it a great make-ahead option. I'm using traditional yeast, so the milk needs to be lukewarm. I then add a little honey to feed the yeast. Give it a good mix to completely dissolve, then cover and set aside for 10 minutes. In the meantime, combine the flours, sugar, and salt, and sift together or use a whisk. I could have used a bigger bowl, but they were all occupied. The reason why I'm using both bread flour and cake and pastry flour is to give the loaves a nice and fluffy texture, as opposed to using all-purpose flour, which will make it a little bit more bland. You can see how the yeast has grown, so we know it's active and ready to use. Start by placing the eggs and yolks in your mixing bowl fitted with a hook attachment and get every little bit out. Then add the yeast and vanilla. After the liquids are well mixed together, add the flour mixture a little at a time. Once all the flour is incorporated, add the softened butter a little at a time. Keep scraping the sides of the bowl in between the butter additions. Keep the mixer running at medium-low. I'm just speeding up the video for time's sake. My bowl is 7 quarts, but even for 2 loaves, the quantity of ingredients is small, which can lead to incomplete mixing. So you have a few options. 1 is to double the quantity, making 4 loaves. 2, if you have a smaller mixer like the 5-quart artisan, that should work fine. 3, if you're making just 1 loaf, you can use a bread machine with a sweet dough setting. And 4, if you're finding the dough hook just isn't working for you, you can switch to a paddle attachment at very low speed. I've used this method as well, and my brioche came out perfectly fine. You just don't want to overwork the dough and develop too much gluten that results in a tough brioche. The dough is ready when it releases easily from the dough hook and sides of the bowl. If needed, add 1 tablespoon at a time of bread flour until no longer sticking. Remove the dough from the bowl, then cover and let sit at room temperature for half an hour to relax. If it's still really sticky, you can do a few stretch and folds or slap folds on the counter like I'm doing. until the dough no longer sticks to your hands or to the counter. This creates a little more gluten structure to the brioche. I'm not using gloves because the dough is too sticky to work with gloves, but now I can show off my nice manicure. In case you're wondering, the color is OPI Crawfish for a compliment, which is a really nice apricot color for spring. Anyways, back to the brioche. Brioche bread, in my opinion, is one of the more challenging doughs to master, but with practice and patience, you'll be able to master it as well. Cover the dough and refrigerate for at least 8 hours. The next day, you'll notice the dough is almost doubled and will be firm, which is what we want as it'll be easier to work with. It should also release easily from the bowl. Weigh the dough and divide in half. I weighed each half to be about 625 grams. Then cover one half with plastic wrap or a bowl cover while you shape the other half. The dough will start to soften and rise, so you want to work quickly. I didn't show the next step, which is to divide the dough into 8 equal parts to make a Nantes-shaped loaf. This is referred to the shape made by individual buns squeezed together, which originated from the Nantes region in France. I'll then show you how to make a braided loaf. Lightly flour your work surface and pinch the dough together. Then roll into balls with a cupped hand to make it smooth. Or you can use 2 hands if it's easier. Then place the balls in a greased loaf pan. I'm using cake goop that I made myself and will also post the recipe below. You'll notice the dough starting to puff and may lose their shape, so you may need to re-roll as you place them in the pan. Then cover and let it rise for about 2 hours or until doubled in size. To make a braided loaf, divide the other half of dough into 3 equal pieces, which is about 207 grams each in this case. Roll them into logs on a lightly floured surface about 14 inches or double the size of your loaf pan. Then pinch the ends together and loosely braid. Pinch the other ends together as well. Carefully place the braided loaf in the greased loaf pan and straighten it out with the help of a dough scraper. Cover and let rise for 2 hours. After proofing, give the loaves an egg wash with 1 egg combined with 1 tablespoon of milk. Shake off the excess wash after each brushing to avoid having scrambled eggs on top of your brioche. You can also smoothen out the tops of the loaves at this time, but try not to apply too much pressure. You can also add a little bit of coarse sugar on top for decoration. Then bake the loaves at 325 Fahrenheit for 30 to 35 minutes or until golden brown. This is a very delicate dough, so we're baking it at a lower temperature without convection. Let the loaves cool for 10 minutes on a wire rack before inverting back onto the rack to cool completely. I didn't even need to loosen the loaves with a knife. They just popped right out. I love cake goop. These loaves turned out beautiful from the outside, perfectly golden all around. It's now taste test time. Brioche is very delicate, so don't apply too much pressure while cutting. This bread is so light and fluffy, but with so much flavor and not too sweet. I love this bread for breakfast with a little bit of butter or jam, but my daughter loves it just straight up. This is the perfect bread for French toast. It's cut a little thicker, about 3/4 inch thick. If making stuffed French toast, then cut it 1 inch thick. Have you ever tried mascarpone in French toast? Oh my god. I might have to post a video on that one next. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and are inspired to make brioche bread someday. I enjoy answering questions, so please leave your comments below. And happy baking!